Hello, the blouse that I've made here is totally inspired by Martha at Buried Diamond, so please check her out. It's a gorgeous little blouse. I'm going to show you my interpretation of it. I'm using a little blouse top that I've already used previously. I found this really nice antique lace in our charity shop, and what I'm doing here is placing it into a bow shape, twisting and turning and pinning it into position how I like it to look. At the side seams, I decide to put the lace at a 90-degree angle just to make it easier when I'm putting the back lace on. I stay stitched the armhole and neck hole to make sure nothing stretches out of shape during construction. Steam off on the iron, save my fingertips, and then I'm pressing the lace into position. Glass head pins are better. Ask me how I know. I did manage to melt a couple of plastic ones. Hey ho! Here I'm doing a really narrow zigzag across all the edges of the lace, and when it gets to a bend such as here, I just still stay to the edge. Don't worry about the folded over edge, it's so small it won't matter. I really enjoyed stitching this part. It's quite slow and methodical, but sometimes it's nice to take time and enjoy what you're doing. The front lace is all stitched into place now. I'm placing the back of the blouse over the side seam because I want to measure where the lace is. So here I'm just checking underneath and putting a little mark so that the lace will match up perfectly on the side seam. Every bow has a knot, and just to make a knot looking piece here, I've folded a piece of the lace over, measuring how big I want it to be, and then this will be put into position and stitched over the crossover on the bow to create the knot. Just popping that in place. This is the lace on the back, just put against that marker that I put earlier. And now I'm having a play with that, just putting it in position where the twists and turns should be, and again pinning it into place. There was no real structure to doing this, just wanted it to look like it was floating in the breeze across the back. This is what the rear of the work looks like once it's stitched on both sides. And now, being super careful with the point of my scissors, I'm working through the channel that's been created by the stitches to snip along the centre of it. And then very carefully trim each side so it's a little bit smaller, about 1/8 of an inch or so. Very carefully with the tip of your iron, press these seams so they're pointing away from the lace. And then back at the sewing machine with a really narrow zigzag again, go along the edge of the lace, making sure that the seam that we just pressed away from the lace is being held under those stitches. All the lace is now secure in position, and on the rear it looks nice and tidy. Those seams have been stitched down into place. This is the knot of the bow that I cut earlier, and here I'm finger pressing the edges so they stay nice and flat, popping it in position, and then a couple of pins just to keep it in the right place while I sew it in place. That's now all stitched in, and I'm thinking this looks really nice. I'm happy with it. Now it's time to construct the blouse. I'm sewing the side seams here, but we'll also do the shoulder seams as well. I'm just checking the side seams to check that the lace has matched up, which, yes, I'm quite happy with that. I'm overlocking the edges on the seams, especially as this fabric is so good at fraying. Best practice to press your seams, first to set the stitches in the seam, then press the seam, and then it's always a good idea to turn it over and to press the right side as well. I've made my own bias binding out of the same matching fabric. I do have a tutorial on this, so please go and check it out to see how it's done. I pressed the bias binding in half along its length, and here I've placed the raw edge against the raw edge of the neck or the armhole, and just completing a really narrow seam. For the start and the finish of the bias binding, pull the bias so it's just pulling out over the edge like so, and what it does, it creates a really nice neat join. Those long ends have been trimmed off, I've trimmed the seams, and now the bias binding can be folded to the wrong side and pop some pins in place just to help it stay in the right place as we're sewing. And then the bias binding can be sewn into position. It looks nice and neat when it's done, and there's the underside. I fancy having a frill on the hem of my blouse, so I cut a frill out that was twice the width of the base of the blouse, and here I am pressing a hem ready to sew. It's a good idea to hem the frill now before it's fixed onto the blouse, as it's less cumbersome like this. A large stitch length ready to do the gathering stitches. I'm making sure I've got 2 tails of the thread, and now stitching 2 rows of gathering stitches. I'm finding the centres of the back and the front and marking those with pins. Now to fix the centre of the frill in position, the centre of the back or the front. Right side to right side. And the side seams too. Now pull on those 2 threads to gather and distribute the gathers. The frill has now been sewn on and I'm really pleased with this. I'm checking everything is flat so it doesn't get caught underneath as I overlock the raw edge. I've top stitched that on the right side just to make sure the seam always stays going up. And this is my finished blouse on a breezy day. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video.